We welcome the new class of adult achievers, but more importantly, we honor our teen Black achievers as they prepare to move on to the next phase of their lives. When you think about what's going on outside these walls and outside in this world, it feels like the world has been turned upside down, and one can't help but wonder what the future holds for the next generation. Your presence here lets our teen achievers know that although things may look grim at times, together we can turn the world right side up again. To my fellow alumni and adult achievers, now is not the time to be on the sidelines. We have to continue to be in the game and in it to win it, to continue to provide every opportunity to our youth achievers to ensure their futures will be bright. If I can reflect on the acronym just for a few seconds of the YMCA or YWCA, the letters stand for Young Christian Men or Women's Association. So I hope you don't mind if I quote Isaiah 40:31. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. Let's continue to work together and draw on God's strength to pave a road full of opportunity for all our youth. I have the pleasure of introducing our MC for this evening, Mr. Justin Hunt Hurt Dunkley. He's an award-winning actor and producer. First of all, let me tell you, he's a former teen achiever. So, from 10 years ago, I think, class of 2010. He's an award-winning actor and producer who has secured commercial roles with some of the biggest brands in the world, such as Comcast, Apple, Nike, Adidas, and many more. Justin's TV credits include CBS's record-breaking series, The Last OG, BET's reboot of the 1992 film Boomerang, that was produced by Halle Berry and Lena Waithe, NBC's Blind Spot, and more. This young man is busy. Justin has recently wrapped feature film directed by Oscar and Emmy-winning director Steven Soderbergh, who did Ocean's 11, 12, and 13, Magic Mike, and Traffic, and Oscar-winning writer Terrell Allen McCraney's Moonlight, new feature film titled High Flying Bird on Netflix. Check it out. He has helped produce series from the web to comedian Rob Stapleton's high-anticipated comedy film, The Stuff, award-winning series Deep, and so much more. Raised in Newark, Delaware, of Jamaican descent, to parents Carl Dunkley and Marlene Hurt, Justin at a young age knew show business was his industry of refuge. Being sent to auditions as a child, securing commercials like Toys R Us, to educational videos as a preteen. At age 17, he auditioned competing against hundreds of teens for a role on a new HBO comedy drama, How to Make It in America. Even though the role was minor, doors began to open. Though fully aware of the importance of education, Justin went off to study marketing at Morgan State University, growing up business-minded, having his own business as a teen. He felt marketing and acting coincided and was the best area of study for him, minoring in media arts. Justin, for the duration of his higher learning studies, kept his drama engine sharp by taking acting classes separate from his university classes that he was taking there. That's a lot. He had some great coaches, though, that helped him along the way. Balancing school, work, and scene study, this was Justin's way to be fully prepared to take on the industry after graduating. He graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree from Long Island University in 2015, and since then has taken on different hats in the film industry outside of acting, such as producing and casting, with plans to broaden his palette even more with writing, then directing. So it is my pleasure to announce to you and to present to you our MC for this evening, Mr. Justin Hurt Dunkley.
I've been on networks such as Netflix, HBO, NBC, just to name a few, but this platform right here is particularly exciting for me, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I am a Black Achievers alumni. I was waking up Saturday mornings, going to the Walnut Street Y. Yeah, with Miss Claire. How you doing, Miss Claire? I was in these very seats as an active member of Black Achievers for this gala. I attended Morgan State University, which actually was a stop at the Black Achievers college tour that we have. So I'm heavily tied and forever in debt to this wonderful program. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Black Achievers. It's wonderful. I do want to mention we do have a raffle. It's 1 for 10 One ticket for $10 and 3 for $25 in the back right there, so you guys can get mini prizes. So this is going to be a great show for us tonight. We're going to run fairly quickly, and without further ado, I want to introduce our Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Jim Kelly.
So tonight has started off really, really well for me. So my wife told me when I was coming to make sure I did not leave unless I got Lisa Lowry's autograph. And she's going to be thrilled because I also got a book. And so I've knocked that one off. So the next thing is Justin, just hearing his bio. My son is an aspiring actor in LA, and let's just say he's aspiring. He's not quite, he's been out there a couple years now, so before Justin leaves, I'm going to become his best friend. But really, welcome everyone. 31 years. This is amazing for an organization like this. Give a round of hand. I've been in the Y 41 years now, and I'm still only 39. But it's amazing that a program such as the Black Achievers has excelled, not just been in existence, but has excelled for 31 years. There are not many YMCA programs that last 2 years or 5 years. 31 years. That's an amazing accomplishment, and I'm sure when I'm long gone and there's people sitting here in 50 years, they'll be celebrating 81 years. And it's just an amazing program, and what it's done for people's lives has just truly been amazing. And I'm thankful for being a part of it. I hope I've been able to work with the steering committee over the years. Carolyn and I were talking earlier. We were joined at the hip a couple years ago as we went through some times. But this is truly one of my favorite events to come to each year. I think out of the 31, I might have come to 24 events in my career in the Y, so it is one of my favorite nights. So welcome to the 31st annual event, and what this program truly does for kids in our community is just amazing. And you're going to hear a lot more that they're doing today than they did 31 years ago. These kids are being exposed to many things in life, not only on their college tour and their education travels, but they're also traveling globally now through other countries, and they plan to go to, well, I'm hearing many countries over the next several years. So we're really excited about that. And I think that has a lot to do with our new executive director downtown. He has a global vision, as well as some of our volunteers, and these kids will have some tremendous opportunities coming soon. So again, thank you all for coming. I just want to recognize some of our wonderful community leaders that are here with us tonight. I want to Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester is here this evening. We want to say thank you for coming and being a part of this. We have Anifa Chavez from City Council, President is here, and again, she has been a tremendous supporter of Black Achievers for many years. We appreciate that. Matt Meyer, from our Executive Director from Newcastle County, is here this evening. Thank you, Matt, for being here. We have representatives tonight from Senator Coon's office and Governor Carney's office and the Mayor's office, and we really appreciate all of you here. If I've missed anyone, if you could just... Our treasurers, please stand. Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you. So there's a lot of things planned. A lot of times I get to say good night to everyone. I'm so excited to be welcoming everyone because usually at the end of the evening you're telling me to get off the stage. So I think I'm still getting that signal. So I want to, again, thank you all for coming. Again, 31 years of this wonderful program, and we're here to celebrate tonight. So thank you all for coming.
Good evening, everyone. And thank you for attending the 31st Annual Black Achievers Gala. Thank you to our sponsors, the YMCA of Delaware, the Walnut Street YMCA, the Black Achievers alumni, our parents, and our amazing teen achievers. The Black Achievers program recognizes the professional talents and accomplishments of men and women working in Delaware, and also celebrates the possibilities, the opportunities, and the endless potential of the next generation of Delaware citizens. This has been a phenomenal year for the Black Achievers program. This year, with the help of the Navient Foundation, we were able to take 20 teens and 15 colleges and universities up and down the East Coast, starting from Maryland all the way to Orangeburg, South Carolina, for 6 days and 5 nights. With the help of Christiana Care, they provided us the space to train new adult achievers on facilitating workshops on how to reach and teach teens. Youth achievers learn skills in public speaking, effective communication, STEM, arts and graphic design, culinary, law, and policy. 2 current youth achievers, along with 2 alumni achievers, served on our first Global Teens cohort and traveled to London to celebrate the YMCA's 175th birthday. All 6 of our graduating seniors were accepted into a 4-year college and university and are currently thriving. 2 of them also happen to receive scholarships from Delmarva Power AARB. A big component of our program is awarding the scholarships to students who have been participants in the program. So we will give all of our graduating seniors a $1,000 scholarship once they graduate college. Tonight, we announced the scholarship eligibility awards for the following Black Achievers freshmen: Kennedy Blanchard, who now attends Delaware State University; Sincere Bryant, who attends Delaware Technical College; Imani Matthews, who attends University of Pittsburgh; Marcus Frank, who attends Delaware Technical College; Makai Lee, who attends Lincoln University; and Tyrese Henry, who attends Delaware Technical College. We are so proud of our Black Achiever graduates and wish them great success in their future. There's another group of people I would like to recognize, which are the parents and grandparents of our current Black Achievers. Can you all please stand? At this time, I would like the steering committee for the Black Achievers program to please stand. I would like to thank the steering committee for their hard work for pulling this event together. I honestly don't know what I would do without them. Thank you so much. In addition to the work of the steering committee, I've had the great opportunity to watch the wonderful adult class of 2019 grow into some of the best mentors and role models I've ever seen. We've also became family. This year, not only did we build lasting bonds on this year's college tour, we supported each other through the birth of new babies, career changes, and grad school acceptances. It has been a pleasure working with them, and some of them have already shared that they're not going anywhere. So please join me in recognizing them tonight as I will ask the 2019 class of adult Black Achievers to come to the front. The hardworking group of women and men brought our youth a phenomenal year in program activities. They loved on our youth, supported them, and many of them have just been an ear to listen to. They've all supported me throughout this year, and I couldn't have asked for a better team. So thank you for all your hard work and all you've done to make this year memorable. Please step forward when I call your name to receive your pyramid. Lakeisha Ferguson. Vernita Coverdale. Kim Thomas Odom. Sierra Roberts, Laura Giselle Tamby, Brianna Huff, and Camille Fletcher. Ladies and gentlemen, the outgoing class of 2019 Achievers. Our 2019 Achievers will now be inducted into the Black Achievers Alumni Association. Although I might add, they are not really going anywhere as they stated, because we all know, once an achiever, always an achiever. I thank you for your dedication, hard work, and passion for the Black Achievers program. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I would like to bring one of our outstanding 2019 Adult Achievers to the stage, Lakeisha Ferguson.
That's my mom.
Good evening, everyone. Excuse my loud daughter over here to the side. That's my daughter. As Anisha stated, my name is, I'm gonna take this off because I'm short. My name is Lakeisha Ferguson, and I am the 2019 Adult Black Achiever representing Christiana Care. This year, serving as an adult mentor has been great. I was able to share this experience with my 14-year-old daughter, who has now become a youth achiever. I've also adopted a couple of kids of the program who call me mom. Hey, daughter. Thank you, Christiana Care and the Black Achievers program, for giving me this opportunity to spend my Saturday mornings, almost every Saturday morning, with an amazing group of youth people, young people. This experience has been life-changing, not only for me, but also the awesome 2019 Black Achievers class. As an adult achiever, you are expected to commit to a year of serving as a mentor and role model to the youth achievers. You are also expected to offer educational and career guidance, coordinate and facilitate workshops, and conduct corporate and industry site visits. But if you ask the youth achievers, you have to be fun. So as our year of service comes to an end, it is my honor and pleasure tonight to introduce and welcome the 2020 Black Achievers Adult Class. When I call your name, can you please step forward to be recognized? Tamara Blake, Barclays. Jania Delaware, Barclays. Jada Jones, Navient. Nakia Squires, Christiana Care. Dr. Nia Jones, Christiana Care. Kimberly Clark, Christiana Care. Kevin Hunter, Emcee. Well, all right. Jillian Harris, ENT and Allergy of Delaware. Andre Chambers, WSFS. And Cheryl Broadwater, Delmarva Power. You are all going to be great next year, and I wish you all the best of luck. Please feel free to always tap into your amazing group of Black Achievers alumni for advice. Thank you.
She began working at WPVI-TV, Channel 6, the city's ABC affiliate, as a reporter and co-anchor of the Action News in 1978 at the age of 24. She covered the story of everyday people around the region, as well as numerous political elections and conventions and the activities of the political figures from Massachusetts Senator Ted Kennedy to the President Ronald Reagan and the inauguration of President Bill Clinton. In 1981, she received high praise for her reports, London on Prince Charles and Lady Diana's wedding. However, the stories she loved to tell the most are those of average people with unique experiences and those who overcome major obstacles in their lives. In 2001, Lisa began facing her own significant life challenges. She was struck with a rare nerve disorder that remained misdiagnosed for nearly 2 years. She left WPVI temporarily when the disease paralyzed one of her local vocal cords. Lisa underwent a bone marrow transplant at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota in 2004 and returned to Channel 6 2.5 years later. Lisa has received 3 honorary doctorates and numerous other awards, including an Emmy for a public affairs documentary on Philadelphia's neighborhoods in 1980s and the city's most prestigious accolade, the Liberty Bell Award. She retired in May 2016 after a second bone marrow transplant, having spent nearly 4 decades with WPVI-TV. Wow. She's a pioneer, she's a trailblazer, she's a Black achiever. Everyone, please just give a warm welcome to Miss Lisa Thomas Lowry.
Thank you. I am delighted to be here tonight, not only because of this wonderful program, which, by the way, reminds me of growing up in Institute, West Virginia. The YMCA was big in our lives, and we too had adults who cared as teenagers and young people and lifted us up. And it's so important, especially in small Black communities. Institute, I think it still is, 2,500 people, a little smaller than Wilmington, unincorporated, and it's also known as Chemical Valley. I didn't pay too much attention to that when I was growing up. We lived between Carbide chemical plant on one side and DuPont chemical plant on the other. But we had a good childhood. We had good relationships, we had strong families, and the neighbors were our mothers and dads. If we did something, we grew up in the day when if you did something wrong, your neighbor was gonna make sure your mom or your dad knew it. If they weren't around, they were gonna discipline you. But it was wonderful. And that's where I developed my passion for writing and loving anything that had to do with literature. I can remember, and kudos to you, Justin, for being a Black achiever and coming back to bring it full circle, to pay it forward, because that is so important. The year that I decided to write my book and launch it, I went to my first elementary school reunion in Institute, West Virginia, and we had 40% turnout. I remember at the end of the day seeing a woman push an older woman in a wheelchair down the street, and the day after it made front page news because the woman doing the pushing was 84 years old. And the woman she was pushing was my 104-year-old last principal of Institute Elementary School. And she was still kicking and going strong, and she remembered a lot of our faces, if not our names. But that's where I developed my passion for writing and producing. I used to write school plays. and I used to cast my classmates in it. I'd always cast myself in the starring role. And I remember one night with our principal, and this principal, Louise Thompson, I knew she was from Philadelphia back when I was 9 years old and in the 3rd grade. I had no idea that moving 25 years forward, I would see her again in Philadelphia, that was her hometown, that she would become my husband's patient, that he and I would visit her at Tucker Nursing Home in North Philadelphia. So life takes you on certain journeys, and you learn to appreciate it, whether it's a challenge or a beautiful journey. You make them all work in your life. But my principal, Nan Louise Thompson, decided to let me put on a play called The Red Shoes. I have no idea why. For not only my 3rd and 4th grade classmates, but their parents at the evening PTA meeting. So I put the play on, and about half of the 3rd graders were in it, and afterwards it received thunderous applause, and I can remember the feeling I had. But none of those feelings matched what my father would say. I was a daddy's girl, having 3 brothers and being the oldest, and he would always kid all of us, but especially me, and I remember him reaching down and giving me a squeeze and a kiss and saying, "Not bad for a little yellow-colored girl from Institute." I was over the moon. And from there, I took my love of journalism to Dunbar High and became the fashion editor and the English editor for the newspaper. I'm going to remember this. We were the Bulldogs, and I was editor of the Kennel. From there, it was on to college. But having grown up in Institute, that was the home of West Virginia State College, which is now West Virginia State University. At the time I was growing up, it was an all-black school, an all-black college. Things have changed, but a lot has remained the same. But I didn't want to go across the street to college. I wanted to have the real college experience. So I really wanted to go south about 54 miles to Marshall University, but my mom and dad didn't have the money. So a neighbor, a good friend, told me about a journalism scholarship I could apply for. And my father got the paperwork together, and I wrote essay after essay and applied for this scholarship that was going to at least pay for my freshman year. And I got that scholarship to Marshall University and started in 1971. I was coming on the heels of one of the most tragic football tragedies in U.S. history. Marshall had lost its entire football team in a terrible plane crash. I had been down there for orientation, and thus the movie was made afterwards, We Are Marshall. I had met some of those players and met some of those faculty members. And it made for a different experience for us. It set a pall over the campus, but it also united the black students because most of those players were black. We were very tight-knit. And to lose them was probably the biggest loss any of us at the age of 17, 18, 19 had ever experienced. But we were a tight-knit group, and there were very productive years that followed. We worked to honor their legacy, and that has finally happened after so many years. We also worked to make a difference in our own lives. And the second year of my freshman year, my grant money was running out, and an upperclassman friend of mine told me, knowing that I had decided to take a job at the Owens plant, the Owens factory, it was a glass factory, said they needed a weather girl down at Channel 3, CBS affiliate. And I had gone to school for print media. I had no desire at the time to be doing the weather, but I needed a job. So I decided a weekend weather girl might not be too bad. The money was going to be pretty good. I went down and tried out for the weather job as a weather girl. And what I learned was that it wasn't going to be too difficult. All I had to know was 50 states and the low pressure system and the high pressure system, and I had to look sort of cute as I pointed to it. And so when I got the job, I was delighted because I could do my studies during the week. It didn't take up too much of my time on the weekends, but I have to admit I was guilty of not taking that first job too seriously. I was pledging a sorority. Ski-wee, anyone? And it interfered with my weekend sorority doings and comings and goings. So it wasn't uncommon to see me doing the weather on the weekends sometimes, having come from a sorority party or the neighborhood swimming pool. I'd have a big turban wrapped around my head and was doing the weather and all sorts of things. Now, the only other black employee at the station on the air was our sports director, Tom Jacobs. And Tom came up to me one day and said, Boz Johnson, our news director, is going to call you in. He wants to talk to you about your attire. It's a little different. I think the night before I had had a head wrap and a big AKA and a halter top on. And so I said, okay. So I waited and waited, and Boz never called me in. So about 3 weeks later, I told Tom, Boz didn't call me in. He said, did you see the monthly ratings? I said, no. What are ratings? Well, I got a good lesson in the power of ratings. It seems that our viewers had given me a spike in their attention, in our viewership, because they were tuning in to see what I would wear. So Boz never had that talk with me. I think he said, let her do what she's going to do. But I did begin to take it very seriously around my senior year, and I didn't think I wanted to do the weather. But I really wanted a hand at doing the news, and I had made a friendship with a young woman who was a reporter there, and she said they had an internship coming up, so she said, ask Boz about it. You're already in. You know everything. So he decided I could have the internship. The news director gave me the keys to the news car and told me to go find some news. I didn't have a producer, so I learned to not only report on the news, but to locate it and produce it and put my voice to it and write it, and back then you did everything. It was a great experience. I never will forget the praise I got from Boz on this special I did, a two-parter on the wastewater treatment plant in Huntington, West Virginia. He really liked it. But anyway, when I graduated, it was at a time when the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, was really cracking down on stations to hire minorities, to hire women. I was a double minority. I was in the right place at the right time. I got about 14 offers around the country because of that experience at that little station in Huntington. And I remember I had boiled it down to 3: Pensacola, Florida, Kentucky, Louisville, or Oklahoma City. And Kentucky was a little too much, a little too close to home, a little too much like Huntington. Pensacola, Florida was really, really hot and country. And so my mother had a friend in nearby Norman, Oklahoma, and we thought maybe I'd go out to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Plus, they were paying the most money. My first job, I got $14,500 a year. That was big money back then, especially for a little 20-year-old. I wasn't even 20 yet. So I decided to go out to Oklahoma, and I remember what a shock it was. I thought, what have I done? there was an oil well on the Capitol lawn, and oh, I missed the mountains. It was so flat and barren, but boy, I learned the nuts and bolts of news there. Back then, we paired up, and they paired me up with a tall, blonde young man named Dave Smith. We still keep in touch today. And we'd go in a van. The camera had graduated, we graduated from a CP16 to a bigger camera, and it was about 9 pounds. Actually, it was the CP16. I think it was a 9mm we had before. And I would heave that thing on my shoulder and shoot his story. Then he'd do the same for me. And then we'd hop back in the van. We'd retreat to a very small closet-like room at the station, and we would literally splice and glue our stories. We had film then, no tape. And then we'd do the audio for it and put it on the air at 6 o'clock. So I was really, really learning the nuts and bolts. Weren't too many unions around then. But I didn't like Oklahoma too much. I didn't have much of a social life. I'd always go down and visit my brother in Dallas, Texas, a couple of girlfriends, until about 8 months in, I got a call from Nashville, Tennessee. And I called Boz Johnson, our general manager back in the Institute, because he had told me to stick it out a year at least, no matter where I went. And I said, Boz, I really would like to get out of here. What do you think? 8 months? He said, you know, if you can get to Nashville, because Oklahoma at the time was the 37th largest market. Nashville was number 32. So it'd be a nice little jump up in size and viewership. So I went down for the interview in Nashville, and I knew I would love it there. My mother had gone to Fisk, and I thought about Meharry, and there was so much more, Vanderbilt, Grand Ole Opry, so much more to offer culturally. And that night, that Sunday evening, I was in the hotel room and was waiting for my interview with Chris Clark at KTVY the next morning. And I said, let me turn on this station where I'm having the interview and see what they're all about. So I turned on the news, and my jaw dropped, because there was a black woman anchoring the news solo. I had never seen such a thing in my life. And what I remember was how good she was, how distinct her voice was, how confident she was in delivering the news. I had never anchored before. And I said, boy, when I go in tomorrow, I sure hope I meet her. I have to tell her how impressed I am. So the next morning, I'm ushered into the news station right outside Chris Clark's office, and I see the young woman over in a corner in the newsroom. And I walk over to her. At that time, I'm Lisa Howard. That's my maiden name. And I said, I have to just say how impressed I was seeing you last night, and what a good job. And she looked at me, and I told her my name, and she says, aren't you a tall drink of water? I had probably 3-inch heels. I was already 5'10", so I'm standing. And she said, hello, how are you? I'm Oprah Winfrey. And I thought, that's a strange name, but I learned later, after I had the interview with Chris Clark, that I was going to be shadowing Oprah that day. She was going to be showing me the ropes. That station was the first in the country to do live shots, to do live newscasts. And I would see her put a package together, and then I would see her do a live shot at the end of the day, and we just connected, you know. We had a good old time. That evening, when she was getting ready to go home, she asked me what time I was going to be leaving the next day, and I told her, and she says, well, you know, don't go back to the hotel. Come and stay with me. You can catch your plane later that afternoon. So I did, and I remember being impressed with her apartment. She laughs at me when I tell her that today, because She had a regular apartment, you know, it was a 2-bedroom apartment, and I knew that that was pretty special to be that age and have a 2-bedroom apartment, but it was just something about it, and she had a double-lined shower curtain, and I'd never seen that before. On her coffee table, she had this mansion made of popsicle sticks. And we learned that we had both been nominated to go to Girls State. Me from West Virginia, she from Nashville, Tennessee. And it was a program for high-achieving young black women and men. So we had that in common. We were both born in 1954. We talked about all the TV stations that were coming up during our time, and the radio stations, and the Brown versus Board of Education, so many things that were happening the year we were born and since, and what we wanted to do in the media. She also told me that if I got the job in Nashville, she probably wouldn't be there, because she was being interviewed rather on the sly at a station in Baltimore to co-host the primetime evening news. She was pretty sure she was going to get it. So we parted ways, but we exchanged numbers and kept in touch. And sure enough, I got the job in Nashville. By the time I got there, she had moved on to WJZ in Baltimore. We stayed in touch, but I just loved Nashville, and I made friends and did stories. I never anchored, but I always loved reporting. I was there for about 2 years when a talent scout from Philadelphia came flying down, Joe Hunter, a black man. He had seen me on the news and wondered if I'd like to work in Philadelphia. So I called my mentor, Boz Johnson, and I said, "Boz, what do you think about Philadelphia?" And I hadn't really done any homework. He said, "Philadelphia? That's the number 4 market. You're in 32 or 31. He says, "Are you kidding? You jump on that right away." So I said, "Okay, let me go to Philadelphia." I'm thinking Philadelphia is like New York, you know, like a big, big city. So I go up for the audition. I'm not sure what the job is yet, but I go up, I think I'm doing a pretty good job. I thought I did a pretty good job with the audition. And I come back, and it was about 2 weeks before I heard from Joe, and Joe says, "Look, they really want you to come, but there's one little problem. They have a Mark Howard, and you're Lisa Howard, and they don't want there to be any confusion. Do you think you could change your name?" I said, "Sure. I'd change my name." So I changed my name, took my mother's maiden name, and I came to Philly as Lisa Thomas, 1978. And I remember vividly, let me tell you first that I was awfully lucky to be paired with a man named Jim O'Brien, because I know most of you know that name, because I'd never anchored before. They had me anchoring the noon news. I'd never anchored in my life. So anyway, they were a little upset at a few things. I had a rough 6 months. My hair was too big. I had an Appalachian twang they didn't like, and I was botching words. Bala Kenwood, Conshohocken. I was messing up some of those names. I was mispronouncing words right and left. I forgot what I called Punxsutawney Phil back then. But. So Jim wouldn't have it. Jim said, "Look, you're a good reader. They're messing with your head. You're just not going to go anywhere if you keep listening to them. So let's do something. You bring in some names and boroughs and cities and, cross streets, and let's practice." So he really took me under his wing, and we did. We practiced those names, and pretty soon I fell into my stride and started feeling confident at the anchor desk. And as soon as I did, Jim liked to play jokes. He liked to play tricks on people. So when he thought I was really confident and could handle it, he decided to change a word in my script one day. I was supposed to read a story on the Schlitz beer brewery up in the Northeast. Yeah, he wrote that, and I said it live on the air. I looked over, and Jim was on the floor in hysterics. And I must have turned 10 shades of red. But the news director called us in afterwards, and we got in a little bit of trouble. But I'd get him back every now and then. But we had such a good relationship, and people don't realize Jim was so funny on the air and worked all hours of the day, but he cared more about that station than anybody. So when we lost him in 1983 in the skydiving accident, it hit hard, you know. It was like a family loss, but we decided we were going to carry on his legacy, and we didn't lose. People thought, oh, without Jim O'Brien, we're going to go down in the ratings, and we didn't, because it wasn't just about one or two people. It was about the format and how we delivered the news and, you know, the camaraderie. So we kept moving forward, and what I realized that was a watershed moment for me, as I assumed Jim's role at 5 o'clock with Mark Howard, and I started doing the Thanksgiving Day parade and the 4th of July parade, some of those duties that Jim had done. And the next 20 years were idyllic in Philadelphia. You guys, during all that time, and when I say that, you guys, the Delaware Valley embraced me. I couldn't have been more welcomed and happy, and I met a man in Chester that I married, and we have 2 lovely sons. Vernon Odom introduced him. We were on a blind date. I was an hour late, I remember. I won't tell you about all that, but I had a news story to do when I came. We were at the Mooshaloo down on the river, and I was an hour late, and when I came in, he was shaking his head and looking down and looking at his watch. So I came walking in, and he perked up, and we had a really, really good night, and the rest is history. We hit it off right away. And part of the reason was because he didn't know who I was, and he was so busy getting his medical practice together, he didn't watch the news. And before then, I had had dates with guys who wanted to have the anchor lady on their arm. But it was really nice. 20 years, 2 sons, and then just when I was at the height of my career and in the best of health, I was working out. I'd take my boys to school and come back and work with a trainer, and was eating, was vegetarian then, and the best of health. And I started to feel these funny sensations in my legs, starting with my feet and my limbs. Couldn't figure it out. But one day, when I was working with my trainer, Bobby, she noticed, and I noticed, that I couldn't power walk up the inclines like I used to. And there was a weakness there. So Bill, being a physician, said, look, go get an ENG, a nerve conduction study. Let's check this out. Let's get on top of it. So I did, and we found out that I had lost 33% of the strength in my feet and ankles. We didn't know why. So we continued to go to doctor after doctor. Finally, Bill said, why don't let's go to, he had a friend, a dear friend and mentor at Jefferson. And he, at the time, was the head of neurology, chief of neurology at Lankenau. A small frame black man. I remember Dr. Edgar Kenton so well because he was so approachable and so nice. Very small frame, fiercely intelligent. And after visiting with me most of the morning and conducting 4 or 5 tests, he said, look, I think you have this rare condition called POEMS syndrome. POEM is an acronym. P is for polyneuropathy. O is for organomegaly, large organs. E for the endocrine system. M for the main root of the problem, which was my blood, monoclonal gammopathy. Most of you have 200 to 250 platelets. Mine, 1.4 million, off the chart, and asked for skin changes. At the time, I had 3 of the 5 symptoms. I hadn't developed an enlarged liver yet, and I hadn't had the endocrine system be affected, but I had a bluish, grayish tint to my skin. I had polyneuropathy, and I had the monoclonal gammopathy because my platelets were off the chart. Dr. Kenton said he was almost sure I had POEMS, which is a plasma cell dyscrasia disorder, a blood disorder. They called it a smoldering myeloma. If we didn't catch it fast enough, treat it fast enough, it would become cancer. The problem was Dr. Kenton was getting ready to leave and go to Morehouse to do research. He was moving to Atlanta in 2 weeks, but he referred me to a hematologist at Lankenau. He referred me to a neurologist at Johns Hopkins, the best, the so-called expert on POEMS. And he would stay in touch. And so I went to them. They followed his diagnosis for about 2 months, and then they put their heads together and decided, no, I didn't have POEMS. I had an autoimmune disorder. They thought it was CIDP, chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. The main thing was the polyneuropathy, excuse me. And so we talked to Dr. Kenton. He still says, I wouldn't give up on the POEMS, but you could go ahead and try. What could he do? He wasn't really there. Anyway, they treated me with a blood exchanging procedure called plasmapheresis, where they'd hook me up to 2 machines. One, they would take my blood out and circulate it and get what they called all the bad stuff out of it, and put in a synthetic hormone called albumin. And it was a nauseating experience. I did that for about 2-month intervals for a year and a half. And you couldn't tell if I was getting better or worse sometimes because of the prednisone they gave me, the steroids. If any of you have ever taken steroids, you know they can mask the symptoms. So sometimes I said, yeah, I'm feeling great, I'm feeling strong, I'm getting better. And then other times, I was not.